There comes a point in life when failure stops hurting the most. What hurts the most is having to begin again. Again. And again. Again. You rebuild your confidence, just to lose it. You finally feel motivated, then life knocks you down. You tell yourself this will be your comeback year, then somehow you fall into the same habits. And after enough disappointments, you stop fearing failure. You start fearing your own patterns. Because nothing exhausts the human soul more than constantly rebuilding a life that keeps collapsing internally. This is Isabella's story. A story about burnout, loneliness, self-doubt, and the silent pain of becoming tired of your own unfinished versions. But more importantly, this is a story about what happens when someone finally stops running from themselves. Isabella lived alone in a small apartment on the north side of Chicago. Every morning looked the same. Alarm clock at 6:30. Cold floor against her feet. Coffee brewing in the kitchen. Gray winter skies outside her window. Then work. Emails. Phone calls. Traffic. Fake smiles. Conversations that meant nothing. And every evening, she came home emotionally drained, not because her life was terrible, but because deep inside, she felt disconnected from herself. Nobody noticed it. To the world, Isabella seemed responsible. Independent. Functioning. But there's a difference between surviving and truly living. And Isabella had been surviving for years. Some nights she sat quietly on her couch staring at the ceiling with television noise playing in the background. Not even watching. Just existing. Thinking about all the versions of herself she failed to become. The healthier version. The confident version. The disciplined version. The healed version. She had met all of them briefly. But none of them stayed. Every few months Isabella became obsessed with changing her life. She bought journals. Made routines. Watched motivational videos at 2 in the morning. This time will be different. She always believed it. And honestly, for a little while, it was different. She woke up early. Cooked healthy meals. Went running near the lakefront. Started reading books again. She felt alive. Hope returned. But then reality slowly entered the room again. Stress from work. Loneliness at night. Memories she never healed from. Emotional exhaustion she kept ignoring. And little by little, she disappeared from herself again. The routine stopped. The goals faded. The energy vanished. Then came the worst part. The guilt. Because every failed attempt made Isabella trust herself less. And eventually, she stopped asking, "What if I succeed?" Instead she started asking, "What's the point of trying if I'll just fall apart again?" People talk about failure like it's one big dramatic moment. But most failure happens quietly. It happens when someone stops believing their effort matters. It happens when exhaustion becomes stronger than hope. And Isabella was exhausted. Not physically. Spiritually. Mentally. Emotionally. One Friday night she sat inside her parked car outside a grocery store while rain hit the windshield. She had planned to start fresh again that week. New goals. New habits. New mindset. But she couldn't even force herself to walk into the store. That's how drained she felt. And sitting there in silence, she realized something terrifying. She had become addicted to restarting. Because restarting felt exciting. A new routine gives you dopamine. A new goal gives you temporary hope. A fresh beginning creates the illusion of control. But consistency? Consistency is harder. Consistency forces you to face yourself on ordinary days. Not just motivated days. And Isabella noticed a painful pattern. Every time life became emotionally difficult, she abandoned herself. She disappeared from her own routines. her own goals, her own healing. Then later, she returned pretending it was a brand new beginning, but it wasn't a new beginning. It was the same wound repeating itself. And deep down, she knew it. That realization broke her. Because she finally understood, the problem was never discipline. The problem was self-abandonment. A few days later, Isabella visited her childhood neighborhood after years away. The streets looked smaller now. Old basketball courts. Corner stores. Apartment buildings with chipped paint. As she walked through the neighborhood, she remembered being 12 years old sitting beside her mother on a tiny apartment balcony during summer storms. Her mother used to tell her something she never fully understood back then. Life gets heavy when you keep fighting yourself. At 12 years old, those words sounded meaningless. At 28, they sounded like truth. Because Isabella had spent years fighting herself. Fighting her emotions. Fighting her fears. Fighting her bad days. Fighting her imperfections. Every setback became proof she was failing at life. And maybe that's why she kept collapsing internally. No human being can heal while constantly hating themselves. That night Isabella went home and opened one of her old journals. Page after page contained the same sentences repeated across different years. Start over Monday. Fix your life. Become better. Don't fail again. She suddenly noticed something heartbreaking. None of the pages talked about peace. Only performance. Only pressure. Only becoming good enough. And for the first time, she cried honestly. Not dramatic tears. Not movie tears. Quiet tears from realizing how cruel she had been to herself for years. The next morning, Isabella didn't create a giant plan. She didn't make impossible promises. She didn't try to transform her entire life overnight. Instead, she made one decision. I will stop disappearing from myself. That was it. No dramatic speech. No perfect routine. Just one promise: stay. Even during difficult days. Especially during difficult days. So she started smaller than ever before. 5-minute walks. 10 pages of reading. 1 healthy meal. Sleeping earlier. And when she failed, she stopped turning one mistake into self-destruction. That changed everything. Because most people don't ruin their progress with one bad decision. They ruin it with shame afterward. Shame says, you failed again. You'll never change. Why bother continuing? And once shame takes over, people quit completely. But Isabella slowly learned how to continue imperfectly. Some mornings she still felt anxious. Some nights loneliness still hit hard. There were days she still cried in her apartment after work. But this time, she didn't vanish afterward. She stayed connected to herself. And that consistency began rebuilding something she had lost years ago: self-trust. Months passed. And strangely, nothing dramatic happened. No overnight success. No viral transformation. No magical breakthrough. But Isabella noticed subtle changes. She handled stress differently. She spoke to herself more gently. She recovered faster after difficult days. And slowly, her entire energy changed. One evening after work, she walked beside Lake Michigan while the city lights reflected across the water. The wind was freezing, but for the first time in years, her mind felt quiet. Not because all her problems disappeared, but because she finally stopped treating herself like a project that constantly needed fixing. That night she realized something powerful: healing isn't becoming a different person. Healing is finally feeling safe enough to be yourself. And maybe that's why so many people stay trapped. They think growth means becoming perfect. But real growth is learning how to remain standing on imperfect days. Anyone can feel motivated when life feels good. But strength is choosing not to abandon yourself when life hurts. So if you're watching this feeling tired, tired of restarting. Tired of failing. Tired of trying to rebuild yourself every few months. Listen carefully. You are not behind in life. You are not weak because your healing took time. And you are not hopeless because you struggled again. Growth is messy. Some chapters will feel confusing. Some seasons will humble you. Some days you will question everything. That does not mean you're broken. It means you're human. Stop expecting yourself to heal perfectly. Stop turning every mistake into proof you can't change. And stop abandoning yourself because progress looks slower than you imagined. The person you want to become is built through repetition. Through endurance. Through ordinary effort. Through continuing after disappointment. Not through perfection. One early morning, Isabella stood watching the sunrise over Chicago. Cars moved below the city streets. People rushed toward another busy day. Cold air brushed against her face. And suddenly she smiled. Not because life became easy. But because she realized something beautiful. For the first time in years, she wasn't starting over anymore. She was continuing. Slowly. Imperfectly. Honestly. And maybe that's the real meaning of strength. Not never falling apart. But learning how to return to yourself, without hatred. Again and again, until one day, you finally stay.